Hi, this is Misha, and I wanted to talk about Earth's first mass-produced spaceship, the DY-100, first launched in 1996. I'm sure you saw the news reports on CNN. This craft is just over 100 meters long, about 104. It's about 35 meters tall, including the tower. It is capable of sublight speed only. When configured for interstellar, it can get up to about 1/10 the speed of light, which is actually quite quick. But more often, these ships were used for trips to the moon and back, or to Mars. Now, when going to the moon, they would either be just regular passenger transports, or fuel carriers, or cargo ships. But when going to more distant places like the moon, or presumably places like Jupiter, they would be sleeper ships. They have these modules for that purpose. They would require about a crew of 6 to operate, and could carry up to 100 passengers, either in cryotubes or for short duration flights, kind of like a jetliner. They were powered by simple nuclear fission engines, and they launched from Earth using boosters. Then they would be receiving their modules and other final assembly in orbit, and then sent on to their destination. This vessel was capable of docking with the International Space Station, the ISS. But it was not capable of landing on a planet. This was a spaceship, although it resembles a submarine or a pencil. Quite a famous ship in history. This is what was used until Earth developed a warp drive in 2063. At which time the DY-100 series was replaced by the DY-500, which was a very similar model, but with warp drive. So how did Earth come up with this ship, and why haven't you heard about it, right? Of course, the real-world explanation is this was made back in the 1960s for the original series, the first season, and no one had any idea about the future, and space travel was rapidly progressing at the time, but that's not fun. I like the explanation. Technology to develop this actually was obtained from the Ferengi when they crashed at Roswell. It's hilarious. So this was developed in secret at Area 51 and launched in secret. And then, of course, you can't talk about the DY-100 without talking about Khan Noonien Singh. Khan, the most Hispanic Sikh Indian in the world, and also the most popular Star Trek villain because of the highly charismatic Montalban. In universe, Khan Noonien Singh was a despotic dictator, but not a bloodthirsty one. He just liked order. And when Earth was kind of tired of him and he was losing wars, he and 84 followers took the SS Botany Bay, launched from orbit, and set a course for deep space, which was considered extremely risky when it was done. The ship's navigational systems, which were automated, malfunctioned, and the ship ended up adrift. For over 250 years, until it was discovered by the USS Enterprise, captained by James Tiberius Kirk, who mistook this for a number 2 pencil. Oh, I'm sorry, a DY-100. Oh, but I'm still gone with pencil. Khan and his followers ended up on the Enterprise, and they were just trying to get to know the ship and, socialize, maybe throw a little party in engineering, but Kirk overreacted, and things get out of hand, and Kirk couldn't take having another alpha male on board, so Kirk marooned them on SETI Alpha 5, at which time the cargo modules were detached and landed on the planet to help form the colony. And since the crew of the Botany Bay was a mix of men and women, honestly, a whole lot of loving went on. In the first 6 months, there were dozens of marriages and not a few births a year later, or less. And the colony was thriving, despite the treacherous Kirk's inattention, until the planet next to it exploded, throwing SETI Alpha 5 into ruin. Even then, Khan kept his people alive for years, assuming that, of course, a responsible starship captain would check up on nearly 100 men and women left on the planet. But he did not. Nevertheless, Khan did his best for his people, because he was a man of the people, and was still able to keep dozens alive for well over a decade, until finally, 15 years later, the USS Reliant paid a visit, and by which time there were only a dozen, maybe 15 survivors, including Khan. They asked for a lift. The Reliant said no. They took the Reliant instead. So I say any group of 12 to 15 malnourished people that can take over a ship with over 200 people on board, hey, they deserved it. And really, can you blame Khan for wanting a little revenge after all that? His wife was dead. His people were mostly dead. He watched them suffer. And all Kirk had to do was pay a visit. Anytime between 2267 and 2280. He did not. So, like you do. We're only human, right? I will do a video on the Reliant and its variants. I brought it here because it's fun to talk about that. Back in the 80s, this was often called the Avenger class, kind of in honor of Khan. More recently, it's the Miranda, but it's always been the USS Reliant. And actually, it scales quite nicely with this here Botany Bay, both from Eagle Moss, of course. The Botany Bay being about 100 meters, and the Reliant XL being just under 250 in real life. Well, in real life fiction. So yeah, they look neat together. I'd say he traded up. What do you think? Went from a battered old pencil with no guns or warp drive to, frankly, a cutting-edge ship with powerful phasers and torpedoes and warp drive. And hey, even Chekhov knew it was the right thing to do because he helped him, right? I'm sure the worm in his ear was not really even necessary. I mean, it's Chekhov. All he really had to do was, a woman. And Chekhov would, yeah. Anyway. I just thought I would do this, guys. The Reliant we'll talk about later. It's a neat model, relatively new. The Botany Bay is really neat. There have been a few models in the past of it, but not many. And this one's nice. It says Botany Bay on it. It's got some neat weathering. It's got the engines. It's got the sleeper pods, little conning tower, all that good stuff. So yeah. Well, any questions or comments, welcome them below. As always, I appreciate you tuning in. And if you could, check out some of my other little videos. This is Misha, and I will catch you next time.